Alrighty, nice. Alright, so I decided to start today's stream off here because I thought before we actually get into the content of the stream, we can do a little bit of story time. And while I tell the story, instead of just standing outside the monster arena, we can stand somewhere that looks a little prettier, sounds a little better. And I can kind of make my way down towards the monster arena while I talk about what's going to happen in today's stream. So let me turn encounters off, and then we will begin today's session. So, what are we doing today? Today we are going to do something that I last, I would say, like seriously attempted maybe 15 years ago, 14, 15 years ago. And it's something that, like, back in the day, when the Nosphere Grid challenge was a lot newer, and the kind of the highlight boss of that one, obviously, even by the time I got into the usual like Nosphere Grid challenge, Dark Anima was, you know, the star of that particular challenge. It was always like the Dark Anima. When it came to Dark Aeons, it was always the Dark Anima challenge, and that was the one that inspired me to obviously go for it, create the channel name, all of that kind of story. And obviously the rest of that is history when it comes to Nosphere Dark Anima. But there was always another boss outside of that, which was actually a huge problem in Nosphere Grid. And Penance is the obvious one, because obviously you need to defeat Dark Anima in the first place, and then if you manage to succeed and you get to Penance, Penance is a whole different ball game even than Dark Anima. So we're not going to talk about Penance in this one, because maybe we'll do a session on that too. But for now, let's just assume Penance is also in this like super duper basically impossible realm. I kind of forget that there's no music in this bit. It's always a bit weird signing like this. So yeah, alongside Nosphere Grid Dark Anima, there was always Nosphere Grid Shinryu. And Shinryu was a fight that back in the day when I was first trying to do these challenges, I thought about obviously trying to defeat Shinryu because it's another one that had never been done before when I was investigating the Nosphere Grid challenge back in the day. And there was discussion about it, like, is it possible? Is it not possible? How would you go about defeating Nosphere Grid Shinryu if you could? What was the setup? What was the strategy? What were the options? And that kind of thing. And I think something that muddied the waters a little bit back in the day was that there was this guy who, I'm talking about like far back enough in time that basically YouTube videos were very uncommon, especially for Final Fantasy X challenges. And there was a guy who used to chat in the forums, I think even before my time. By the time I was starting to read the GameFAQs forums for Final Fantasy X and the challenge boards and that kind of thing, this guy basically wasn't posting anymore. And he had supposedly claimed that he had defeated Nosphere Grid Shinryu. And I think back in those days especially, like if you had a good reputation on the forum and you said that you did something quite outlandish, people tended to give you the benefit of the doubt. And I was no different. Back in the day, I was like, holy shit, there's this one crazy person who's managed to achieve this. There was never any proof other than their word. And supposedly that they'd had a few thousand attempts to be able to do it. And I thought, well, a few thousand attempts sounds pretty insane. Like, yeah, I mean, maybe they did it. And obviously, there's a big thing here that, yes, maybe they did truly do it. But that also kind of motivated me at least enough to give the thing a go. And so back in the day, back when I was also trying to defeat Nosphere Dark Anima, I was also trying to fight Nosphere Shinryu and seeing if there was any hope of getting some kind of crazy run in order to be able to beat Nosphere Shinryu. And I got absolutely nowhere near. I would say I had in the realm of like maybe hundreds of attempts. Like I didn't, it was, I think I had more Nosphere Dark Anima attempts than Shinryu attempts for sure. But Shinryu I got absolutely nowhere near. And once I actually start showing you guys the fight, for anyone unfamiliar with it, you'll find out why once things get started. And over time, I started to increasingly just think like, come on, man, like really, is this fight actually possible? It just like, I started to try and crunch some numbers and look into how the fight would work if it was successful. And when you start to look at the numbers involved in something like that happening, it just seemed so outlandish that eventually in my own head, I just concluded that it's impossible, and I didn't believe this guy who posted it in the forums. I still don't to this day. If anyone ever provides some kind of live stream proof or like some way of kind of doing it where we know that it wasn't somehow hacked or cheated through, then of course, like, sure. Or if a new strategy is discovered, something that we've overlooked over the years, then sure. But I just kind of concluded that, yeah, like, this fight is impossible, and I gave up on it. And I focused my attention on this guy. And we all know how that went in the end. But even after I defeated No Surrogate Dark Anima, basically, it was like, obviously in my head, I was like, well, I did this one, and this one, you know, it was always known to be basically possible, but it seemed incredibly unlikely. And I was just like, well, if I achieve that one, who knows, maybe some miracle will happen, and I'll also beat No Surrogate Shinryu. Again, tried it a little more, and it was absolutely nothing, like nowhere near at all. And so I gave up on it a long, long time ago, and I haven't really been back since. But obviously, due to this channel and the stuff that I've done over the years, the challenges that I've done, and you know, the content that we have, I thought, well, it'd be nice to kind of go back to this challenge and to show you guys, because this was basically something that I was interested in long before almost anybody watching here today was actually watching the channel. So like, I think I have a No Surrogate Shinryu video from like 2009, and I guarantee there's very, very few people that were watching the channel in 2009. So I thought it would be good to kind of come back to it just to share the fight a little bit. Spend a session just kind of dying to Shinryu over and over again, just to show you guys what it looks like. And then eventually, once we kind of get tired of that, and we all conclude that it probably is basically impossible, then what I want to do is have a look at Nemesis. Because of course, back in the day, the whole thing was, you can beat all of these guys in No Sphere Grid, but you can't beat Shinryu. And as a result, you can't unlock Nemesis. And so for that reason, back in the day, I wasn't too, like, when I was deeply investigating the challenges, I wasn't too, like, clued up on, like, how to manipulate saves and, like, unlock this, unlock that, do this. It just wasn't my style of play. Nowadays, things are very different, as you've seen. And so I never basically attempted Nemesis. I thought, well, if I can't legitimately beat Shinryu anyway, what's the point? And what we can now do is basically bypass Shinryu. Obviously, we have all the tools in the world now that we need. And so what I can do is attempt and hopefully win a fight that I never basically attempted before ever. I never did it. So I know it's possible, because the final part of this story is that if you do search for No Sphere Grid Shinryu on YouTube, you will see one video. I've mentioned this one a few times, but just a quick recap of what that is. There is a video of No Sphere Grid Shinryu being defeated, but in that video, the person who created it openly says that they used basically cheats to stop Shinryu from using Eraser, which basically completely alters the probability profile of trying to win a battle like this. It completely kind of changes it. And so it was more just a case of, like, it was more of a proof of concept that it can be done. And the fact that it exists, I think, is still cool, because it shows people that, you know, the fight is theoretically possible. And then, of course, as a result of doing this, they then went on to do a No Sphere Grid Nemesis battle, and they successfully beat Nemesis as well. And so the interesting part of this whole No Sphere Grid challenge is, even for me, there's 3 bosses that remain undefeated. So we've got No Sphere Grid Shinryu, we've got No Sphere Grid Nemesis, and we have Penance. Now, weirdly enough, theoretically, all 3 of those bosses are actually beatable. Shinryu, as you'll see, as we get into the fight more and more, you'll realize that Shinryu is technically beatable. Nemesis is straight up beatable anyway. I think we should be able to do it. I mean, if that guy has a video of it, I'm sure we can figure out how to get that done. And Penance, as our man Corefian in the chat, the legend himself, can attest to, Penance is actually also beatable in No Sphere Grid, theoretically. And that's another thing that we can look at in the future. So you might be thinking that's insane. Like, if Dark Anima was this kind of difficult to do, then how is it possible that you can defeat them too? But as Corefian would say, very theoretically. And I think there's a bit of a thin line between saying it's theoretically possible versus it's impossible. It's just like, it's how technical you want to be with how you use those words. And it's one of those where if I had to describe it, I would say it's technically possible, but like realistically impossible. Like the odds are so small that there is just no amount of repetitions you could do to kind of give yourself a reasonable chance over a span of time. It's one of those where it's like if you kind of sat there until the end of the universe for 1 billion years and just attempted it over and over again, you could do it. And because of that, it makes it theoretically possible, but it's kind of not though, is it? And so Shinryu for me kind of falls into that type of category. And that's something I eventually started to realize, and that's why I gave up on it long term. And Penance is, yeah, it's like another order of magnitude even above Shinryu as well. And so again, these are all fights that fall into theoretically possible, but realistically impossible category. So that's the kind of background that you guys need. But all of that said, I do want to fight Shinryu because if there's one kind of good thing about it, it's a very, very simple fight. And you get to basically kind of repeat the fight very quickly. And you can just kind of get your reps in very fast. And so basically what I'd kind of love to see is at least one attempt where something very unlikely happens. So a little bit like the No Spherical Dark Anima stream I did for the 15th year anniversary, where we did like 3.5 million damage or something like that on my first attempt. Even that was like one in a few hundred attempts probably that you'd even get that far. And so if we can have an attempt where like something pretty crazy happens, where we're still nowhere near winning, but we still have a pretty crazy RNG run, I think that would be like the target if we can manage it. But if not, at least you guys get to truly see what the deal is, and I can kind of open and reclose the chapter on Shinryu pretty damn quickly. But I did want to go back to it before kind of continuing anything else. Okay, so let me quickly adjust a few things. I was experimenting with a couple of little things here. Let me go back to kind of the standard one here. And no, obviously Death Proof is not going to help us in this fight, but let's just find a few things. Yeah, we'll start it like this. Okay. So another reason I wanted to actually do this fight is because I always say, despite all of the impossibility stuff going on, there is... yeah, I removed something to test, I think. Yeah, this was the chat that I had with Karifian where he said in this particular challenge is actually, it might be beneficial to not have auto haste. Auto haste was kind of like the standard. You just assume auto haste is always the best thing to have here. But we had a chat with Karifian where he said actually it might not be. And so for now, we'll kind of leave that stuff. But another reason why I wanted to actually share this is because the only thing I thought was that maybe there is still something that even after all of these years, we've just not been able to figure out or realize in this fight. And maybe there's some wacky strat or even some borderline glitchy thing that we can somehow do to find a way to win that isn't part of like the standard model of fighting this guy. And so any kind of wacky ideas people have, we can test them. Obviously, I've got Final Fantasy Farplane here to kind of just manipulate things if we need to. And maybe we will find something very weird to help us in a way that seemed impossible before. So like I remember, for example, like the Final Fantasy VIII attack only challenge I did where I deliberately petrified characters to act as shields, and you know, maybe there's some really weird strats that could somehow at least improve the odds a little bit, maybe. So we'll see. But now we have this battle theme playing. Let's say, yeah, gonna have to sort that out at some point. I think the first time at least it will play. I've got the tweak thing on so the battle theme doesn't play, but it should hopefully go. It's too late now. I'm not going to mute it. It's the algorithm thing, the content ID thing is so quick. Even if it's on for like 4 or 5 seconds, it catches it. So yeah, there's your general intro to the fight. And now we can kind of do the rest of it in the field. Engage and immerse. Thank you for the donation. Appreciate that. Glad you're enjoying all the content. All right, let's get this started. So what are we working with here? Shinryu has 2 million HP. That's a lot of HP. And in terms of doing damage to Shinryu, obviously our best bet is to use Trio of Quad 9 and then use our overdrives. It is that simple. So you're going to mix together your Trio, and then you're going to go for your overdrives. Now, let's just do the Blitz Ace one first anyway. I think this was a point of contention way back in the days, like should you be using Blitz Ace or should you be using Slice and Dice? I think ultimately, I don't think it matters too much, because like you die afterwards anyway and then get revived and stuff. I don't know. Hey Andrea, welcome to the stream, good to see you. And so therein you saw the first problem. Immediately there. So, yeah, so nowadays I think now that we kind of, the general community, even the challenge community understands CTB a little better, I think Blitz Ace is the better choice here. But back in the day it used to be, oh, but there's a delay, there's a bigger delay, so even if you die and you get revived, does your turn come later because you used Blitz Ace before you got killed and all that kind of stuff. But I think it is pretty clear that you just try to do as much damage as you can with this situation. So yeah, one of the biggest problems of this fight, not even counting something like Eraser, is the fact that Shinryu always counterattacks when you damage it. And so that means that every single time you have Trio of Quad 9 and you use an overdrive, that character will be killed in response. And because we're no sphere grid, we're still very slow, and the chances of staying alive long enough to get another trio up there and have another chance to do an overdrive, it already really kind of shrinks the odds in terms of staying alive. So, what? I pressed X there. That did not register. What the hell? Yeah, that was weird. Great. That's a good start. Yeah, the first X just didn't register. It's such a rhythm thing that when you miss the first one, it's hard to come back and get the rest. I have to see if that happens again. For some reason, the in-game sound effects are off. Yeah, that's true. I think I changed that. I was recording something before. But there you go. Before I even had a chance to do anything, we got taken down. So that's generally how long an attempt lasts. That's basically all there is to it. But just give me a sec. I was recording something. And I turned the SFX off. Yeah, it was the intro to the penance video. I think that's why I did it. So yeah, that's basically your lot already done. So let's just head straight back in. Yeah, not one of my best attack reels. Oh god, an ambush. Okay, so at least the music is fixed now. What you saw there was obviously one of the 3 moves that Shinryu can do. Now, from what we know, it should be a 1 in 3 chance of it picking each move. There isn't like a heightened probability of it picking either one. As long as all 3, at least 2 of your characters are alive. So basically, it can use its normal claw attack, which is fine. It will kill you, and then you auto Phoenix. The second option is what you just saw there, which is Shining, and that basically KOs all of your characters, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later. And then the third is, of course, the infamous Eraser. And Eraser has this kind of like always tag where it is exactly as it says. It's always the case. Like no matter what you try and do, no matter what you have equipped, no matter what state you're in, whatever it is, Eraser will petrify and shatter you in this fight. And so the problem is, obviously, for an attack that happens 1 in 3 times, how on earth are you supposed to stay alive long enough to do over 2 million damage, given how slow we are and given how many attacks Shinryu is going to get? So the way that you basically win this fight is to keep doing this entire rotation, but essentially hope that Shinryu pretty much basically never uses Eraser. Maybe until the absolute final turn where you already have an overdrive charged and you have a second character. Maybe that's one turn right at the absolute death where it could use Eraser. Or it can't, and also it can't basically use Shining pretty much. And so you are going to have to do this entire fight without seeing either of those 2 moves pretty much. Otherwise, it's almost certain that you're not going to be able to win. And so let's start to rattle through a few more attempts here, and you'll start to see how this starts to look in real time when you're actually fighting this guy. So we do over 200,000 damage every time we get an attack reels and a blitz ace off, if you can actually do the attack reels properly, which I couldn't. So that means you need like 10 sets of them in order to be able to do it. But because you get killed every time, the gap between each of your overdrives is going to be a lot. So it's not the case that like you need to survive 10 moves. You need to survive, I think I roughly calculated that you'd need at least about 30 Shinryu moves. Even if everything went perfectly, you'd need about 30 moves from Shinryu to get the fight done. So if you want to get your calculators out, you can literally do like 1/3 all to the power of 30 and see what number comes out. And that's essentially your odds of winning the fight. So there you go. That's more like. Now, unfortunately, because we kind of have so few tools to work with in No Sphere Grid, and this fight in particular, there's just not a lot you can really do to improve your odds or your chances here. There's no, obviously, you can't swap any party members. You can't keep anybody alive. So obviously, one of the first things that was investigated by myself as well, there's a razor, is there any way to tank any of these attacks here? Can you survive a bunch of shining hits? Can you survive the physical hit? You know, the answer, unfortunately, is basically no. And as Carithian says, that would already make for 1 out of 205 trillion odds to win. Realistically, you need to survive a lot more than 30 moves, though. It's probably true. It's probably more like, I don't know, 40 to 50, because I think the 30, when I was calculating it roughly, I think it assumes that Shinryu not only does the 1 in 3 move, it also hits the quote-unquote right character at the right time, so that they can have the overdrive. Because obviously, let's say theoretically, Shinryu always used the claw attack, so you got that part of the RNG, it worked for you, and you had 100 turns in a row where all Shinryu did was just use its physical attack over and over and over again. But it always used it on Riku. If that happens, then again, you can't win the fight, because Tidus and Waka would use 1 overdrive each, they would die, and once they get revived, you can't put Trio back on them, and so you'd be completely stuck. And so that's another reason why it doesn't work. So like, no matter kind of how you slice it, this is one of those fights where you are utterly and completely kind of hopeless to try and win against it, other than just pray for that absolutely unfathomably big slice of luck that you would need to do it. So there's another one. And so now, the good news is that when there's only one character left, Shinryu actually doesn't use a razor anymore, which is fantastic. We only have to deal with Shining, and we only have to deal with the physical attack, and of course the counter attack. So again, there are no tank strategies here where you can survive Shining, because it's like 8 hits, and as a result, like, there are ways to survive like 1 hit of Shining. You can survive 1 out of 8 hits, but you cannot survive anything more than that, just under no circumstances. And so as a result, as of this point, you're done. But hey, in just our second attempt, we already managed over 300,000 damage. Could you imagine Anima in the water? She would just... But there you go. That's another attempt done. As I say, at least the rotations are pretty quick here. We calculated that even surviving 1 out of 8 Shining hits is not possible without using a turn to put up Shell or double HP manually. Yeah, that's also true. And again, the whole problem is if you try to set up any kind of tank to even survive 1 Shining hit, the trouble is that The trouble is that basically once that happens, ambush again, what the hell? They're going to get KO'd once they get taken out, like once they use an overdrive anyway. As Dan Byrne gives 5 memberships, thank you so much. Appreciate that. And so the whole idea of trying to build a tank is also just not really feasible for this one either. I tried to see if there was a way to kind of do it without wasting too many turns, but that's what I mean. The trouble is, even if you try to build Waka as a bit of a tank to at least survive one shining hit, it means he can't attack, because then those buffs are gone. And so I was like, is there a way to buff him up so that he doesn't need to be rebuffed, like as in some kind of armor selection that we can have for him, some kind of quick way to do it? But there's just nothing. There's nothing you can do for him, unfortunately. Oh, crap. I forgot. I don't have a full overdrive. Depending on how Riku dies, you might also not get a full overdrive. But this gives me a chance to show you guys one other thing that's interesting. As more of you join the chat, thank you so much for joining in and hanging out today. Don't expect to see anything more interesting than this. This is all I got for you this week. This is just me dying to Shinryu for 3 hours straight. So that's all you're getting. So yeah, one other interesting element of this fight, well, interesting but not useful, is that Shinryu is actually susceptible to Doom. So for a while at least, people kind of discussed, hold on, wait a minute, is there some kind of way to survive with Doom? And of course the answer is still pretty much no, because 255 turns is a huge number of turns, and even if that basically having this kind of meant that there's more of a chance that you can survive against Shining, because you can constantly put up Hyper Mighty Guard and that kind of thing, you would basically still be at the mercy of Eraser. And so you would have to hope that for 255 turns, Eraser is not used, I would say. I mean, you could probably use it once, maybe, but unfortunately, again, just not just not feasible, no matter which way you look at it. So these are, but basically those were the two like leading theories on how there's even a theoretical chance of dealing with Shinryu, and both of them are ridiculous. Like this one's even more ridiculous. And as we've established at this point, the normal kind of just trio plus attack strategy is also pretty ridiculous with the current setup. So yeah, that's why I'm saying you need to come up with something that's basically never been thought of before, never been tested before, that would actually happen to work, to give you a better chance. But obviously at this point, I don't know what it is. So let's just do one anyway, where we try to use some Hyper Mighty Guards and stuff to survive. Gotta go play Clive and Tekken 8. Yeah, I don't blame you. I've never had an interest in Tekken or those type of games, so, but the announcement was still cool. Okay, so yeah, obviously the one benefit here is Hyper Mighty Guard can save us from Shining, which is nice, but ultimately not going to be that useful. Should have been Tifa. I kind of agree. Clive is definitely cool, but I agree that Tifa would have been the more natural choice for me. Today's my husband's birthday. Happy birthday to him. Hope he has a good one. Alicia and Flatters, welcome to the stream. Good to see you guys. So yeah, you saw my attempt to survive. There, didn't go so well. So we had still, what, like 252 left on the counter. So yeah, didn't make much progress there, unfortunately. I remember also thinking about, like, is there some kind of way to kind of do a little bit of both, where we have trio, and if Riku gets another turn, maybe kind of mix them all up. But all it does is kind of just prolong the fight. The longer the fight takes, the more your odds become even more astronomical. Oh, damn. The legend Dark Kefka himself is in the chat. Good to see you, man. Thanks for dropping in. He's someone that should know a thing or two about the nose-figured Shinryu fight as well. Red Robotics, welcome to the stream. Good to see you. Damn, good turnout today in the chat. Yeah, so because we're underwater, obviously we can't summon here. We're only allowed to use these 3 characters, so there's no swapping any of the characters, therefore there's no summoning. Yeah, people enjoy seeing streamers and content creators suffer when they're playing, so I always figured that at least for one session people would indulge me with this and would just die for 3 hours. That's fine. Yeah, this is just like a little bit of a nostalgia flashback to those hours that I spent fighting this guy like 10, 15 years ago. So our record at the moment is 320,000 damage. We'll see if we can beat that. But yeah, in general, since part the part of this whole thing is just trying to figure out if there's some way to help us increase the odds. If anybody has any ideas, even if they seem silly, just go for it anyway. We're open to testing because this is the best that all of the greatest minds of Final Fantasy X have basically come up with at this point, which, as you can see, is not particularly great. So there's no shame in suggesting anything for this one. This is all we got. Tried everything, gave this up a long time ago. Yep. You, me, both. Bribe him like that. I wish. Kintitus Tech copies Zanmato. How come you can't use Stoneproof? Because Eraser in this particular case is a special case. Eraser doesn't follow the rules of petrification here, where it has its own thing. It basically kind of has its own flag within the game, where once it uses it and it hits something, there are no immunities or blocks or anything like that. There's no way to bypass being killed by it. Now, obviously at one point I was like, is there some way I can kind of deliberately petrify my own character first, so like have one of my characters petrified the whole time and have them act as a bit of a shield kind of thing. But then I realized that if you do that, like basically whenever you're petrified underwater, you automatically shatter, and so there's no way to keep a character petrified while you're underwater, which is a shame. So you can't do anything like that either. I wonder what the world record is for most amount of damage done. I have no idea. It's a good question. I think this is so niche, like there's so few people that have ever uploaded any content related to nose-figured Shinryu that it's probably not that hard to break the world record for it. Just give it a go for a while, and I'm sure just out of pure luck you'll get to like a quarter of the way there, something like that. If I had to guess, my best run was probably like 500k. 600k probably, something like that. That would be like probably absolute max I did it once. This is so niche, and half of the people that tried it here right now, basically, yeah. There's probably like 10 people in the world that seriously tried this challenge across the last 25 years. If I had to guess. Yeah, that's something we can basically start to play with later on this session as well. I can start to control Shinryu's moves, and we can start to build like a perfect fight and kind of see how it would look. So we can definitely do that in this session as time goes on. Oh wow, double eraser. Okay, well that's just rude. Wow. Okay. So, no miracles yet. We've managed to land 3 overdrives. That's the limit. So far. Very early days. And so again, for people like, how do you get better at doing stuff like attack reels? This is probably a good fight to train it up, because you get guaranteed attack reels at the start of every attempt. And so I'm sure over the course of a few hundred attempts of this, you'll start to improve your attack reels timing. Yeah, that's the Spirit Coryphean. That is a very glass half empty take. We got 3 overdrives in. It seems like ChatGPT doesn't even know what it knows who Shinryu is. Exactly the same thing as last time. Wow. Yeah, so this is some pretty mean RNG. Like, you already need astronomically big RNG. We're literally getting bad RNG right now. This glass is full of tears. Not yet, but this is very early days. You know what would be glass full of tears? If you actually had a run. If you actually had some insane run against Shinryu and you did like 1.8, 1.9 million damage, and Shinryu needs to do like one more move, and you've won the fight, and that's already like 1 in whatever trillion odds of actually doing it. Let's just think for a moment that this actually happened, and then Shinryu did a shining and killed everybody. Now that would be an ocean full of tears. Like, that would be the most insane. Like, because then at that stage you're like, is that even bad luck or good luck? I guess it can be both at the same time. It's like, you know, once in humanity's lifetime level luck to even get that far, but then it's also correct, like, it's bad luck at the same time. It's insane. Let's not think about that. The only viable new strat I could see is somehow RNG manipulation. Yeah, I'm not familiar with how that actually works. I don't know how people manipulate RNG. But to me, that's kind of... like, RNG manipulation feels like too much on the cheating end of things, where to me that's no different than going into far plane and just using Shinryu's moves for it. But yeah, I mean, obviously that would be a way to do it. Is it at all feasible to beat 2 of the Mega Sisters simultaneously in no sphere grid? Good question. I think so. Maybe. What are the actual odds? 9 hits from Blitzes, 12 from attack reels. Seems they have 6 views, 8 of those combined. Knockout. No, because you're doing about 210,000 from those 2. And so it would be about 10, basically 10 of those combined. Coryphean threw out a number into the ring. Like, I think his number is a lower bound, honestly. He said 1 in, I think, 205 trillion. So I think that's the lower bound of luck you would need. And so it goes back to, again, like the guy on the forum years ago who claimed to have done it. Once I started seeing those kind of numbers, I'm just like, no one will ever convince me just with their word that they managed to do it. You shouldn't believe me if I say that. Like, just no. I did 1 attempt to my nose video LP, about 300k, that's it. Yeah, don't blame you. Yeah, so Coryphean's right. The first problem is you will never get Blitzes and attack reels together after round 1, because even if Shinryu picks the quote-unquote best move, someone's still going to die, and oftentimes that's going to be Tidus or Waka, so they're going to lose their trio status before they get to use their overdrive again. And so the only time you get to do the quick, like, back-to-back damage is basically in this run. I think, is there maybe a theoretical way where you could do it, where you would use these 2 overdrives, then you would attack Let's see. Nah, because then if it attacks Riku, then obviously you just can't get Trio back. So someone, either Tidus or Waka, has to be sacrificed for Riku to even be able to cast Trio again. So it kind of needs to spread its attacks out across everybody as well. That's another kind of added element to it. Hey James, welcome to stream. Soki X1, I did it before. You know what? That's the only person I will believe. If Soki says they did it, I believe him. And yeah, Dark Kefka's right. It is possible for Shining to only hit 2 allies. Again, low chances of it happening. That's why once I realized that that was true, for Shining to hit only 2 characters sometimes, I thought, well, what if that's the case and you could basically tank Waka up enough to survive a 1 hit? So there might be like a small chance that A, he gets away with not being hit at all, and B, maybe he gets away with being hit once sometimes. And so that would make him, I don't know, like 5% of the time he would survive a Shining or something. And I thought, well, that's better than nothing. But again, to set Waka up in a way that he could do that, it takes too much time, and it gets reset every time Waka attacks. So it just doesn't work. There's that Eraser again. At least 1,000 jump rope jumps is possible. Nah, it's not possible. I'm telling you. That's another thing. There's 2 things in Final Fantasy I won't believe anyone who's done it. It's No Tsurugi Shinryu and the 1,000 jumps in Final Fantasy 9. It's lies. Yeah, the amount of times Riku's been hit with the first Eraser. Did it first, try to replicate it. I think if you use Copycat, they just use the last move that wasn't an overdrive, I think. Like they kind of bypass it. No worries, thanks for dropping by, Dark F. Always good to see you. Absolute legend of the Final Fantasy X community. Do go check him out, he always has good content on his channel, and he's one of the people that inspired me to get more into the challenge side of Final Fantasy literally like 15 to 20 years ago. So, absolute OG. Thousand lightning strikes. Yeah, 1,000 lightning strikes I think is still way more doable. Maybe not on stream. I find it much harder to do it on stream. I did it once successfully, and then once I couldn't do it. Like I would have done it if I spent more time on it, but it was annoying to restart. I wonder if I use Final Fantasy Farplane to petrify someone, do they instantly shatter as well? I think they probably do. I kind of just want to see what it looks like if someone's petrified already. But I assume like it's kind of hard-coded that when you're underwater, the second the petrification flag comes on, you just auto shatter. So I just want to have a quick look. Let's see, Riku status, petrification. Well, let's yeah, so she completely vanished from the CTB. That's not right. I think that just implies like she's disappeared from the battle. Well, I guess she's not going to get a turn while petrified. Let's just see what happens. Hold on, I'm kind of curious. How is she even going to look here? Okay, she doesn't shatter. But does that mean that because she disappears from the CTB that she would never get targeted? We'll also find that out too. That's pretty funny. So this is how you get to see a petrified character underwater using the far plane thing. Again, this is not actually possible. If you were to petrify Riku in this fight, legitimately she would shatter, right? Carithian can back me up on that. I'm pretty sure that's the case. There is no way to have a petrified character not shattered underwater, I think, other than cheating like this. So let's see if we can heal it. Good point, Francisco. Yeah, you can actually. So she shows up here. Let's just see. I'm curious to see what... shit. Does Waka not have... Hold on. I think Waka might not have Auto Phoenix here. Let me double check. Because obviously Riku's petrified, so she can't Phoenix. Don't even know which one he's using. I think I'm not going to attack here just for the sake of seeing what's going to happen. I'm just going to wait. Wait. Oh, I thought it was also going to erase a Riku there. Okay. Let me quickly see what I have on. Okay. Yeah, so we're still trying to see if Shinryu acknowledges that Riku's even in the fight at this point. I reckon no. I think the enemy seeing Riku as being defeated and not a part of this fight at this point. So I think even if you were able to do that in the battle, it feels to me like they wouldn't get hit, but there's only been 2 turns. We need a bigger sample size. Let's have another look. I think well, if he does target her, that would at least be somewhat interesting. Because then I'm like, maybe there's some wacky way to petrify someone without them shattering underwater, and then that at least makes things a little more interesting, right? So I just want to see what happens if you could theoretically pull this off. Oh god, she doesn't have overdrive again. But... yeah, but I think because... the reason I say that is because, yes, enemies can target petrified characters, but I feel like because we're underwater, I think things are different. Like, I think the game kind of still treats her as having already shattered. So that's my guess, but we will find out soon, I think. We'll give it a few more turns. We'll see what happens here. Yeah, he does have an Auto Phoenix. Obviously, we're going to have a lot of shining happening, etc. So this isn't going to help. Let's see if Riku... she took damage there, right? Oh, there you go. Then she shattered. Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, she'll take damage and then shatter. But the point was, can Riku take an eraser on top? His physical attack, his eraser, and each hit from shining shatter 100% of the time anyway. Ah, shit. Yeah, Karifian's idea of fun facts is a bit different to even you and me. Did you try winning? I'm trying my best. Hey Antonio, welcome to the stream. Good to see you. I just want to basically see an eraser get used on a shattered character. I think that'd be funny. I'm going to petrify everybody here. But then no, if I do it on everybody, it'd be game over. So let's not do that. But yeah, the fact that even the shining shatters is just rude. Yeah, there you go. Now, of course, it stopped using eraser. Dude needs to level up a bit. That'll make it easier. I mean, you're not wrong. Leveling up would definitely make it easier. That is true. At the moment, we don't really know what it would do. Yes, I did petrify too, but again, if it considers them alive and still in the battle, then maybe it still uses eraser. You just don't know. Let's see. We're going to be here for a while, aren't we? Yeah, if I said we're not leaving until we win, we would be here for quite a while. What's the minimum requirements you would need to make this winnable? Good question. What is this shining spam, man? What the hell? We know it can use eraser. It did use it on Waka, so it's just... I actually don't know what the minimum requirements would be. I really don't know. Not tried. Shinryu is a weird one. Shinryu is either generally pretty easy, even in challenge runs, or like in this one, it's impossible. There's not too much like in between with Shinryu. Yeah, let's have a look at that. Let's see if we can set auto life on. Okay. So now we're... There you go. There it is. So yes, he can target Riku and he shatters her. Of course, that's when I didn't need the auto life anyway. He just did it. But there's your answer. So yeah. Yeah, exactly. This is Shinryu. Shinryu just doesn't play by the rules. Shinryu does its own thing. So yeah, at least we found that out. That was something I was always curious about. Like, what happens if you do that? Another thing I thought about back in the day was like, I know there's something I can do in this fight that would give me a chance. What if we have... Where is it? What if we do this? It should show up in a second, I think. Let's see if it works. Yeah, I zombify everybody. Riku has auto regen. Let me quickly get rid of that. I was like, what if it does regen against a zombie? Maybe there's some kind of way that the effect doesn't work because they're already zombified. You'll see what happens. But these are the kind of like thinking outside the box kind of things that I think is the only way, really. Hey, Sammy and Miller, welcome to the stream. Good to see you guys. My Final Fantasy pub quiz team rolling out. For anyone who doesn't know, the last pub quiz that I was at, the Final Fantasy themed pub quiz run by the Final Fantasy Union guys, those two were on my team. Good times were had. Wow. That's not a good time. Auto zombie armor, that's what we need. I practice Aurochs reels too much now. My attack reels isn't as good as it once was. Yeah, I basically just wanted to see an eraser used on one of the zombies, but it doesn't protect you. So one thing I was actually thinking of, Carifian, let's say theoretically, Shinryu's eraser carries with it a lightning elemental, and I have SOS null shock. Does the null shock still come in before the effect of eraser, or does the always bypass the theoretical lightning strike that you would put on the attack? What would happen first? Would it stop eraser? That's dope. The odds of winning today is 205 trillion. Honestly, it's not. Even that one is kind of like that's like a theoretical minimum. Like, the fight would not go in a way where you would look back on it and say the chances of that happening was 205 trillion. I feel like the average winning attempt would be, again, a few orders of magnitude above that. Like, I'm pretty sure. Would lightning proof not work? I don't think, no, lightning proof wouldn't work in the same way that the null does here. Yeah, I think it's far worse than 205 trillion, but as I say, I think 205 trillion is like the baseline. That's like the absolute minimum. Yeah, Francisco's number was something like what I came up with back in the day. That's just a very absolute basic calculation. But I mean, you can spare 2 erasers at the end, right? Possibly, yes. Yeah, so I don't know, I mean, how much would it bring it down? You would need to, I think I did something like 1/3 to the power of 28 and then like 2/3 to the power of 2 and multiplied those and shit. Like, whatever you do, it still comes up with a stupid, just a number in that kind of range. Yeah, exactly. So it's not as simple as just obviously doing 1/3 to the 30 or whatever. Like, it would still be more complicated, but that's why I just use those very, very rough numbers to give you an idea. I mean, I don't think it matters whether it's 205 trillion or 55 quintillion. Even if mathematically there's probably a massive, huge difference between those two numbers. In real terms, again, it just doesn't matter. Like, even if it's 205 trillion, it just doesn't matter. So it's still impossible, really. So if there's some way to virus/ace the game into making Eraser an elemental attack, we have something to work with. Yeah, I feel like that's something that you're more likely to come up with, Carufian, than me. Yeah, this is it. This will be all future live streams will just be more attempts at this at this point. That's what we're going to do. Hey, Money Shank, welcome to the stream. Thanks for joining us. Oh man, if only. No sort of arbitrary code execution exists for this game, so don't bet on it. I feel like that's the kind of shit that you'd get in Final Fantasy VII or something. I feel like with Final Fantasy VII, there's literally nothing you can't do. Like, even in-game, without using wild hacks or whatever. Hey Alistair, welcome to the stream. Yeah, for this one, it's not going to be me. I often demonstrate like a lack of confidence in my ability to sometimes do these things, but this one I'm absolutely firm on the fact that I can't. So this was how I think we got our high score so far, but now we're dead. So we still haven't made it past 3 overdrives yet. I think that Final Fantasy is actually still missing AC. I don't know, for Final Fantasy I feel like every other week, even though it's been like flipping millennium since the game came out, they're finding some new shit and they're like, oh, if you stand on this spot and spin around 8 times and pat your belly, like this happens in the game or something. I don't know how they keep coming up with this shit, but they just keep finding new stuff all the time. They're lunatics, that community. They're amazing, but they're insane people. But that's those are the kind of realms I'm thinking for this fight. Like, there might be some very weird way to make something happen. Yeah, I did mess around with a few of those armors, but I did feel a bit like ultimately they just had no impact. They just didn't do anything. Let's just charge this overdrive. It's another annoying thing. Depending on how you die, you're just not going to have the overdrive. Yeah, since we're going to need insane RNG anyway, let's just throw away one of our turns and get started later, right? Should be fine. What do you think the chances of Final Fantasy X ever being actually remade rather than remastered? I think it'll be remade next rather than remastered. I think the remaster will hold up for a long time to come. And it's the remaster still basically the original game. Like, everything is absolutely identical, like story-wise and dialogue-wise. Everything is shot for shot the same game. So I think in the future it'll probably be a remake. Even with RNG manipulation, would it be reasonable to come up with the turns needed? I don't think so. We need a speedrunner perspective. Yeah, so those are like elements of this stuff I just don't understand.